Most tales of freedom begin with chains broken, but Thera's freedom began with a choice to become invisible. Not through magic, not through hiding, but by erasing the one thing that made her trackable in a world ruled by wolves, her scent. For 7 years, she had been a ghost among predators, undetectable, untraceable, until the day an alpha king learned to hunt by sound alone, following the rhythm of a heartbeat that betrayed her every time he came near. The contraband market of Ashvale operated in the Broken District where even the Crown's enforcers rarely ventured. Thera moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her cloak pulled tight, a vial of suppressant oil hidden in her palm. Around her, wolves in human form haggled over stolen goods and forbidden wares, their enhanced senses probing every stranger for threat or opportunity. But not her. Never her. 7 years of daily applications had made her a phantom. The suppressant oil, a rare and illegal concoction brewed from nightshade root and silver ash, masked her natural scent completely. In a society where wolves identified everything and everyone by smell, rank, pack, affiliation, fear, desire, Thera was nothing. Unreadable. Free. She'd been 16 when she first bought the oil from a rogue chemist. 23 now? She couldn't remember what her own scent had been. Floral? Earthy? It didn't matter. What mattered was that without it, she couldn't be tracked, couldn't be claimed, couldn't be forced into the fate that had destroyed her mother. Thera. A low voice cut through the market noise. She turned to find Cassian, her supplier, gesturing from the shadows of a collapsed archway, Pyre Ave. His weathered face was grim. "We need to talk." But she followed him into the ruins, away from prying ears. Cassian produced a familiar dark vial, but his hand trembled as he offered it. "This is the last batch I can make for you." Her stomach dropped. "What? Why?" Crown's tightened restrictions on nightshade root. "They're executing anyone caught with it." He pressed the vial into her hand. "There's enough here for 2 months. Maybe 3 if you ration it carefully." 2 months. Then what? Her mind raced. Without the suppressant, her scent would return. She'd be identifiable, traceable. And in a kingdom where unmated females were considered crown property until they chose, or were chosen, she'd lose everything she'd fought to preserve. "There has to be another source," she said, hearing the desperation in her own voice. Quote, "There was the Crown raided them all last week." Cassian's eyes filled with pity. Quote, "Whatever's happening, they want everyone accounted for, every cent registered." "I'm sorry, Thera." She left the market in a daze, the vial burning against her palm like a ticking clock. 2 months. She had 2 months to find another solution or disappear entirely from Ashvale. Maybe leave the kingdom altogether. Though crossing the borders without pack identification was nearly impossible. Lost in thought, she didn't notice the crowd's sudden hush until it was too late. The royal procession moved down the main avenue like a dark river. Black armored guards flanked an obsidian carriage bearing the Crown's silver wolf insignia. The crowd parted instinctively, heads bowing, necks baring in submission. Thera pressed herself against a building, making herself small. She'd never seen the king in person, few had. King Corin. Nightshade ruled from his fortress, a phantom sovereign whose laws were absolute, but whose face remained largely unknown to common citizens. The carriage slowed, then stopped. Directly in front of her, Thera's heart hammered against her ribs. Around her, people remained bowed, frozen in deference. She did the same, eyes fixed on the cobblestones, willing herself to blend into the stone itself. Then she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. The carriage door opening. Footsteps. Measured. Deliberate. Coming closer. She didn't dare look up, didn't dare breathe. Her suppressant oil was fresh, she'd applied it this morning. There was no way he could detect her. No possible way. The footsteps stopped directly in front of her. You. The voice was deep, commanding, wrapped in alpha authority that made her wolf instincts scream to submit. Look at me. Thera's hands clenched. She had no choice. Defying a direct alpha command, especially from the king, was punishable by death. Slowly, she raised her head. King Corin Nightshade was younger than she'd imagined, perhaps 30, with sharp features carved from shadow and stone. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, silver gray, and unnervingly focused. Dark hair fell to his shoulders, and power radiated from him like heat from a flame. But it was the way he looked at her that stopped her heart, not with the casual dismissal she was used to, but with recognition. As if he saw something no one else could. Interesting, he murmured, tilting his head slightly. His nostrils flared, testing the air, finding nothing. His eyes narrowed. You have no scent. The market seemed to hold its breath. To be scentless was to be suspect, criminal, other. I'm ill, Your Majesty. Thera managed, the lie she'd used 100 times before. A fever. The healers say it affects. Your heart is racing. He cut her off, his gaze intensifying. Like a drum in a silent room. Irregular. Panicked. Ice flooded her veins. He couldn't possibly— What's your name? He asked. Thera, Your Majesty. Thera. He tasted the name as if sampling wine. And where do you live, Thera, with no scent and a heartbeat like thunder? She couldn't answer. Couldn't think. Because in that moment, she understood with terrible clarity. If he couldn't track her by scent, he'd learn to track her another way. A way she couldn't mask with oils or potions. He could hear her heart, and it was betraying her with every terrified beat. The royal summons arrived 3 days later, delivered by a stone-faced guard who waited while Thera read the sealed parchment with trembling hands. She was to present herself at the Palace of Shadows by sunset. No reason given, no refusal permitted. Cassian had gone pale when she told him, "He's marked you. Kings don't forget faces, especially ones that intrigue them." I didn't do anything wrong, Thera protested, though her voice lacked conviction. You exist without a scent in a kingdom that demands everyone be identifiable. That's crime enough. Now, standing before the palace gates as the sun bled orange across the sky, Thera clutched her cloak tighter. The suppressant vial in her pocket felt lighter than it should. She'd used more than usual, paranoid about any trace scent escaping. The guards led her through corridors of black marble veined with silver, past tapestries depicting ancient wolf battles and conquered territories. Other servants moved through the halls, but they all possessed what she lacked, the subtle scent markers that declared their pack, their purpose, their place in the hierarchy. She was brought to a chamber that was neither throne room nor dungeon, but something in between. High windows let in the dying light. King Corin stood by one, his back to her, hands clasped behind him. Leave us, he commanded the guards. The doors closed with an ominous thud. Thera remained by the entrance, maintaining maximum distance. Quote, "Do you know why I've summoned you?" he asked without turning. "No, Your Majesty. I've been thinking about you," Thera with no scent. He turned now, those storm-gray eyes finding her across the room. About how you've managed to survive in Ashvale without pack protection, without identification. For 7 years, her throat went dry. He'd investigated her. "I've had my people make inquiries," he continued, moving closer with predatory grace. "No one knows where you came from. No pack claims you, no family acknowledges you. It's as if you materialized from shadows 7 years ago and have been haunting my kingdom ever since. I keep to myself, Your Majesty. I cause no trouble." "No." He stopped a few paces away. "You don't. You work odd jobs, pay your rent, break no laws except one, the suppression of your natural scent. Do you know why that's illegal, Thera? She did. Because unmated wolves must be identifiable for the claiming ceremonies. Quote, precisely. His gaze intensified. Every unmated female of age is required to attend the seasonal ceremonies, where alphas may claim them as mates. It's been law for 3 centuries, preventing territory disputes and maintaining pack stability. But you've never attended, have you? Power. I didn't know I was required. Don't lie to me. His alpha voice rippled through the command. Your heart accelerates when you're dishonest. It's quite distinctive. Anyway, Thera's hands clenched. This was impossible. She'd been so careful. Corin circled her slowly, like a wolf studying prey. I find myself with a dilemma. You're clearly hiding something, running from something. But you're also resourceful, disciplined, and you've survived 7 years in the harshest district of my capital without pack protection. That requires remarkable strength. He stopped in front of her again. So I'm going to offer you a choice. You can tell me the truth who you are, what you're hiding from, and I might be inclined to help you. Or you can continue lying, and I'll have no choice but to treat you as the criminal your scentlessness suggests you are. Thera's mind raced. The truth would mean revealing what her mother had died to hide. But lies he could apparently hear in the rhythm of her heart. She started, then stopped. If I tell you, you'll use it against me. That's what alphas do. Something flickered in his expression, almost like, hurt? Is that what you believe? That all alphas are predators? In my experience, yes. Then your experience has been unfortunate. He moved to a nearby table, poured 2 glasses of dark wine, offered her one. I'm not what you think I am, Thera, and I suspect you're not what you pretend to be either. Perhaps we're both wearing masks. She didn't take the wine. Why do you care? I'm nobody, nothing. Because, he said softly, and for the first time, she heard something other than alpha command in his voice. Something almost lonely. In a kingdom full of people whose every emotion I can smell, whose every intention broadcasts itself on the wind, you're a mystery. And I've been surrounded by certainty for so long, I'd forgotten what curiosity felt like. His eyes met hers, and her treacherous heart skipped a beat. She saw him, notice it, saw the slight tilt of his head, the focused attention. There, he murmured. That irregular rhythm. What does that mean, I wonder? Fear, or something else? Thera forced herself to breathe normally, to calm her racing pulse. But it was impossible with him looking at her like that, like he could see straight through skin and bone to the secret she'd buried 7 years ago. I need time, she finally said. Time to think about what I'm willing to tell you. Corin studied her for a long moment, then nodded. 1 week. You'll return here every evening at sunset. We'll dine together. And perhaps, gradually, you'll learn that not all alphas are monsters. And if I refuse, then I'll have no choice but to investigate why you're so desperate to remain hidden. And I promise you, Thera, my investigators are far less patient than I am. She was trapped. They both knew it. 1 week, she agreed. As the guards escorted her out, she felt his gaze following her. And worse, she felt the responding flutter of her heart. The organ that was supposed to be her most private rebellion, now broadcasting her every reaction to a king who'd learned to listen. The evening dinners became a dangerous ritual. Each night, Thera returned to the palace, and each night, Corin drew her deeper into conversation. He never demanded answers, never pushed. Instead, he asked questions about her daily life, her work, her thoughts on the kingdom's policies, powers. It was, she realized by the 3rd night, a form of hunting, but unlike any hunt she'd known before, Tell me about the contraband markets, he said over roasted venison and honey-glazed vegetables. I know they exist, but my enforcers can never quite locate them. Thera carefully cut her meat. They move, never in the same location twice. Clever. And what do they sell besides suppressant oils? Her knife paused. She looked up to find him watching her with those two knowing eyes. Yes, he said gently. I know that's where you obtain your condition. I've known since the second night. Your heart stutters distinctively whenever I mention certain topics, suppressants being one of them. Then why keep having dinner with a criminal? Because I'm beginning to suspect your crime is one of survival, not malice. He set down his goblet. Someone hurt you. Someone with enough power that you'd rather erase yourself entirely than risk being found. Thera said nothing, but her pulse hammered. There it is again, Corin murmured. That frightened rhythm. Who are you running from, Thera? Why does it matter to you? The words came out sharper than intended. You're the king. You have a kingdom to rule, wars to wage, ceremonies to preside over. Why waste time on one scentless woman? He was quiet for a moment. Then, come with me. I want to show you something. He led her through the palace to a tower she hadn't seen before. At the top was a chamber with windows on all sides, offering a panoramic view of the kingdom. The city lights spread below like fallen stars. Every night, Corin said, standing by the eastern window, I come here and listen. Listen to what? Everything. The city. My kingdom. He closed his eyes. I can hear the taverns closing, lovers arguing, children crying, guards changing shifts. With my alpha senses, especially my hearing, the world is never truly quiet. Every heartbeat, every breath, every whispered secret, it all reaches me, eventually. He opened his eyes, turning to her. Do you know what that's like? To be surrounded by constant noise you can't shut out? To hear every lie, every fear, every hatred directed at you? Thera found herself moving closer, drawn by the unexpected vulnerability in his voice. That's why your silence intrigues me, he continued. Not your lack of scent, but the way you move through the world, trying to make no sound at all, as if you understand what it means to want to disappear. Quote, I do understand, she admitted quietly. Better than you know, then help me understand. He turned fully toward her. Tell me, who hurt you badly enough that you'd choose invisibility over existence? The earnestness in his voice undid something in her chest. For 7 years, she'd spoken to no one about the truth, had carried it alone, a stone in her throat. My mother, she heard herself say. My mother was claimed by an alpha named Dravon Ironclaw. He wanted her for her bloodline. She was the last of the Silvermoon line, born with rare lunar magic. He didn't love her. Pash. He wanted to breathe that magic into his pack. Corin's expression darkened. Dravon Ironclaw, I know of him, brutal, traditional. He ruled the Northern Territories until he died 7 years ago in what was reported as a territory dispute. It wasn't a dispute, Thera corrected, her voice barely above a whisper. My mother killed him. The words hung in the air between them. Corin didn't move, didn't react, simply waited for her to continue. He beat her. Repeatedly. When she got pregnant with me, he became obsessed with whether I'd inherit her powers. When I was born without any magic at all, he was furious. He wanted to kill me, but she hid me away. For 16 years she protected me from him. Her voice cracked. Then one night he came for me anyway. Said he'd find another use for me. She fought back, killed him with silver before he could. Before he could claim me the way he'd claimed her. And then, his pack wanted revenge. Wanted to kill us both for alpha murder. So my mother used the last of her magic to fake my death, make them think I died in the fire that destroyed our home. Then she sent me away and stayed behind to face them alone. The tears came now, hot and bitter. They tore her apart, and I ran. Like a coward, I ran. Found Cassian, who sold me the suppressant oil, and erased myself completely. Because if anyone discovered I was Dravon's daughter, if they caught my scent, they'd finish what he started. She wiped her eyes angrily. So yes, Your Majesty. I hide, because the alternative is being hunted by wolves, who think I owe them blood debt for my mother's courage. Silence filled the tower. Then Corin closed the distance between them, and did something completely unexpected. He pulled her into his arms. You're not a coward, he said fiercely against her hair. You're a survivor. And your mother would be proud. Thera froze, stunned by the embrace, by the warmth of him, by the steadiness of his heartbeat against her ear. For 7 years, no one had touched her like this. Like she mattered, like she was real. Her own heart responded, quickening in a way that had nothing to do with fear. And from the slight tension in Corin's body, she knew he heard it, knew he understood exactly what that rhythm meant. The week of dinners extended into 2, then 3. Thera found herself looking forward to sunset. Corin never judged, never condemned. He simply listened with that intense focus that made her feel seen for the first time in 7 years. But the suppressant oil was running dangerously low. You're distracted tonight, Corin observed during their 4th week together. They'd graduated from the formal dining room to his private study, where books lined the walls and a fire crackled in the hearth. Your heart has been erratic all evening. Thera pulled her cloak tighter, trying to hide the trembling in her hands. I'm fine. Liar. But he said it gently, without accusation. What's wrong? Before she could answer, a knock interrupted them. A guard entered, bowing low. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. Alpha Dravos, Ironclaw requests an audience. He says it's urgent. The blood drained from Thera's face. Dravos, Dravon's younger brother. The one who'd sworn vengeance for his brother's death. Corin noticed her reaction immediately. Dravos? Here? He arrived an hour ago with a delegation from the Northern Territories. Claims he has intelligence regarding rebel activities. Ah, tell him I'll see him tomorrow. He's already here, Your Majesty. The guard looked uncomfortable, waiting in the antechamber. He insisted it couldn't wait. Corin's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Very well. Thera, stay here. Don't let anyone see you. But it was too late. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor, and a man pushed past the guard with the arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. Dravos Ironclaw was a mountain of a man, all brutal muscle and scarred flesh. His eyes were the color of old ice, and when they swept the room, they locked onto Thera with immediate suspicion. You keep your horrors in your study now, Corin, he sneered. How progressive. Watch your tongue, Corin said, his voice dropping to alpha command. This is a guest under my protection. Dravos sniffed the air, frowning. Strange. I can't smell her. What manner of creature has no scent? Thera's hand moved instinctively to the vial in her pocket, nearly empty. She'd applied the last dose this morning, but suppressant oil weakened over hours, and it had been a long day. State your business, Dravos, Corin said coldly. You have 30 seconds before I have you removed. Always so touchy, cousin, Dravos smirked. I came to warn you about rebel movements in the north, and to request something long overdue, my brother's blood debt. Your brother died 7 years ago. His debts died with him, not this one. Dravos pulled a rolled parchment from his coat. My brother claimed a woman of the Silvermoon line. She murdered him. Pack law demands her bloodline pay the debt. I've tracked her daughter for 7 years, and I finally have proof she's alive. Thera's world tilted. Impossible. She'd been so careful. Show me, Corin demanded. Dravos unrolled the parchment, a notice with a crude sketch. It barely resembled Thera, but the description matched. Female, early 20s, silver blonde hair, unusual gray-violet eyes. Last seen in the Eastern Territories. Someone matching this description was spotted in Ashvale 3 months ago. I've had trackers searching, but she's proved elusive. His gaze slid to Thera again, almost as if she has no scent to follow. The room felt too small suddenly, too warm. Thera could feel her suppressant oil failing, the faint edges of her natural scent beginning to emerge. Like frost and moonlight, her mother had once said, distinctive, unmistakable. This woman is a phantom, Corin said dismissively. You've wasted 7 years chasing a ghost, perhaps. Dravos moved closer to Thera, inhaling deeply. His eyes widened. Or perhaps, wait, that scent. Faint, but... Thera bolted. Pure instinct drove her toward the door. But Dravos was faster. He caught her arm, yanking her back with bruising force. Let her go. Corin's alpha command cracked like thunder. But Dravos wasn't listening. He'd buried his face against Thera's neck, inhaling deeply, and his expression transformed into savage triumph. Frost and moonlight. The silver moon scent. It's you. After all these years, I finally found you, little rabbit. Corin moved with lethal speed, slamming Dravos against the wall hard enough to crack stone. I said, let her go. The alpha battle that erupted was primal, vicious. Dravos shifted partially, claws extending, but Corin met him with equal ferocity. The study became a battlefield, furniture splintering, books tumbling. Thera pressed herself against the far wall, heart hammering so loudly she was sure the entire palace could hear it. Her scent was blooming fully now. The suppressant completely failed, filling the room with 7 years of hidden identity. Corin finally pinned Dravos by the throat, his own wolf rising to the surface, in a display of dominance that made every instinct in Thera scream submission. You will leave my palace, now, and you will never speak of this woman again. She owes me blood debt, Dravos snarled. Pack law, I am the law. Corin's voice reverberated with pure alpha authority. And I say her debt is paid. Her mother killed your brother in self-defense. Justice was already served. Now get out before I decide your family owes me a debt for the mess you've made of my study. Guards flooded in, dragging Dravos away despite his protests. His threats echoed down the corridor. This isn't over. The Pax will hear of this. You can't protect her forever. When silence finally returned, Corin turned to Thera. Blood trickled from a cut on his cheek. His shirt was torn. But his eyes were gentle as they found hers. So that's what you smell like, he said softly. Frost and moonlight. It's beautiful. Then Thera did something she hadn't done in 7 years. She cried. Great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. Corin crossed to her, pulled her against his chest, and held her while she fell apart. He knows, she gasped between sobs. He'll tell everyone. They'll come for me. Let them try. Corin's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. You're under my protection now, royal protection. And I promise you, Thera, no one will touch you while I draw breath. She looked up at him, seeing the fierce determination in his storm-gray eyes. Why? Why would you risk political conflict for me? His hand came up to cup her face, thumb wiping away her tears. Because somewhere between our first dinner and tonight, you stopped being a mystery to solve and became someone I can't imagine my world without. Her heart stuttered, then raced. And this time, she didn't care that he could hear it. Didn't care that it betrayed every feeling she'd tried to hide. Because when he lowered his mouth to hers, gentle and questioning and perfect, her heartbeat sang a truth she could no longer deny. She was falling for the one man in the kingdom who could hear every secret her body tried to keep. The attempted assassination came 3 nights later. Thera woke to the sound of shattering glass and found a cloaked figure standing over her bed, silver blade raised. She rolled away just as the dagger plunged into her pillow, rolled again and came up by the window, screaming. Guards burst in, but the assassin was already gone, vanished through the broken window like smoke. By dawn, Corin had moved her into the palace permanently. Not as a servant or a guest, but into the royal wing, in chambers adjacent to his own. This is too much, Thera protested as servants unpacked the few belongings she'd retrieved from her rented room. People will talk. They'll think. Let them think whatever they want. Corin stood by the doorway, arms crossed. His jaw was tight with barely controlled fury. Someone tried to kill you in your sleep, Thera. I'm not letting you out of my sight until I find out who sent them. It was obviously Dravos. No. He shook his head. My spies report Dravos left the city immediately after our confrontation. Someone else wants you dead. Someone inside the palace. A chill ran down her spine. But who else even knows about me? That's what I intend to discover. He moved closer, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. But until then, you stay here. And you don't go anywhere without me or my personal guard. Understood? She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself. But the truth was, she was terrified. For 7 years, her invisibility had been her armor. Now, with her scent exposed and enemies emerging from shadows, she felt more vulnerable than ever. Understood, she whispered. Living in such close proximity to Corin proved more challenging than any assassin. He was everywhere at breakfast in the shared dining room, in the corridor when she emerged from her chambers, in the library when she sought refuge in books. His presence had always been magnetic, but now it was constant, inescapable. And her body betrayed her at every turn. Your heart does this interesting thing, he commented one morning as they broke fast together. It speeds up whenever I enter a room, then skips exactly 3 beats, then settles into a faster rhythm than normal. Thera, focused intently on her porridge. Perhaps I'm still afraid of you. No. His voice dropped lower, intimate. Fear has a different pattern. Erratic, sustained, with shallow breathing. This is something else. She refused to look up, refused to confirm what they both knew. But later that day, when she was reading in his study her new sanctuary, he emerged from his bedchamber in nothing but loose sleeping trousers, hair damp from bathing. Her book tumbled from her hands. He paused, a knowing smile playing at his lips. That pattern again. 3 skipped beats, then acceleration. Quite distinctive. You're indecent, she managed. I'm in my own chambers, he countered, moving to pour himself wine. Powerful. The firelight played across the defined muscles of his back, the powerful lines of his shoulders. Though I could dress if my state of undress disturbs you. It wasn't disturbance. It was something far more dangerous, want, sharp and aching, and impossible to hide from someone who could hear every physiological response. Please, she said quietly. He studied her for a long moment, something hot and hungry, flickering in his eyes. Then he nodded and returned to his chamber to dress properly. But that night, Thera lay awake in her bed, hyper-aware that only a wall separated them. She could hear him moving about, hear the rustle of fabric, the creak of bed frame, as he settled for sleep. Could he hear her too? Hear the racing of her heart? The quickening of her breath? The answer came the next morning when he looked at her over breakfast, with dark circles under his eyes. You were awake most of the night. How did you? Your heartbeat. I can hear it through the wall. He set down his goblet. Were you afraid? Should I post guards inside your room? No. I just couldn't sleep, neither could I. His gaze held hers. Your wakeful heart kept me awake. every irregular beat, every shift in rhythm. It's as if I've become attuned to you, Thera. Like my wolf recognizes yours even though you've never shifted. I can't shift, she admitted. My mother's magic suppressed my wolf to help hide me. I'm only half present in your world. You're fully present in mine, he said softly. More present than anyone has ever been. Days blurred together. Morning breakfasts where they talked about everything and nothing. Afternoons in his study where she read while he handled kingdom business. Their silence comfortable and companionable. Evenings when he taught her to play strategy games, his hand occasionally brushing hers over the game board, both of them pretending not to notice the spark. Check, she announced one evening, moving her queen into position. Corin studied the board, impressed. You learn quickly. I had a good teacher. He made his countermove. Though you're still too cautious, you protect your pieces instead of seizing opportunities. Why is that? Because losing pieces means losing the game, provide. Sometimes you have to sacrifice to win. His eyes met hers meaningfully. Sometimes the greatest victories require the greatest risks. Her heart did that telltale skip and race pattern. She saw him notice, saw the slight dilation of his pupils. Thera, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. Before he could continue, a commotion erupted in the corridor, shouting, running footsteps. The door burst open, and Lord Brennan, Corin's chief advisor, rushed in. Your Majesty, we've identified the assassin. Corin stood immediately. Who? Lady Seraphine Blackwood. She was apprehended attempting to poison the wine stores in the kitchen. She confessed under questioning that she was hired to eliminate anyone who might interfere with her plans regarding Your Majesty. Thera's blood ran cold. Seraphine. She'd seen the noblewoman at court functions beautiful, ambitious, always positioning herself near Corin at formal events. What plans? Corin's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Brennan looked uncomfortable. She believed herself your intended mate, Your Majesty. When rumors spread about the woman you'd taken into the royal wing, she decided to eliminate the competition. Silence fell heavy in the room. Then Corin turned to Thera, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Is that what you are? He asked softly. Competition for a position you don't even want? I never asked for any of this, she whispered. No, you didn't. He moved closer. You ran from claiming, from mates, from everything my world represents. And yet here you are, living in my chambers, filling my thoughts, making my heart race in ways I don't fully understand but no longer want to fight. Corin. My wolf knows you're mine, Thera. Has known since that first moment your frightened heart called to mine. But I also know you're terrified of being claimed, of losing yourself the way your mother did. So I'm not going to claim you. I'm not going to demand or command or force. He took her hand, brought it to his chest where his own heart beat strong and steady. Instead, I'm going to ask, would you consider staying? Not as my prisoner or my obligation, but as someone I'm choosing? Someone I. He hesitated, then said the words with devastating honesty. Someone I'm falling in love with? Thera's world tilted. Love. He'd said love. And her traitorous heart responded with a rhythm she knew he could hear, joyful, terrified, hopeful, and utterly his. After Seraphine's arrest, something shifted between them. The tension remained, but it transformed into something richer, deeper, permission given and accepted. Even if neither spoke of it directly, Corin began teaching her about the kingdom, not just the politics she'd observed from the edges, but the true workings of power. He showed her maps of territories, explained ancient treaties, asked her opinion on matters he normally reserved for his council. You see patterns others miss, he said one afternoon, studying her notes on trade route inefficiencies. You've lived at the margins long enough to understand how systems truly function. Most werewolf stories begin with power and dominance like systems truly function. Or fail to function, she replied, pointing to a gap in northern supply lines. The contraband markets exist because legitimate commerce can't reach certain areas. Fix the infrastructure, and you'd eliminate half the black market trade. Kantan 2. He looked at her with something approaching awe. You just solved a problem my advisors have been debating for 2 years. Your advisors haven't lived on scraps and stolen goods, she said simply. That evening, he asked her to attend a council meeting with him. Not as decoration or silent observer, but as his consultant on underground commerce. The council members, all powerful alphas, looked skeptical until she began speaking. By the end, 3 had taken notes, and Lord Brennan himself requested a private meeting to discuss her insights further. You were magnificent, Corin told her afterward, catching her hand as they walked back to their chambers. Brennan never requests follow-up meetings with anyone. They're going to investigate my suggestions, she said, still slightly dazed by the experience. Actually listen to ideas from someone with no title, no pack, no... They listened because you're brilliant. And because I made it clear that disrespecting you means disrespecting me. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You're becoming indispensable, Thera. To the kingdom. To me. Late one night, she found him in the tower room where he'd first revealed his burden of constant hearing. He stood at the eastern window, face drawn with exhaustion. Rough day? She asked softly. A village was attacked by rogues, 12 dead. I can hear the survivors weeping from here. Their grief, their rage, it echoes. Without thinking, she moved behind him and began working tension from his shoulders. He stiffened initially, then gradually relaxed under her touch. Tell me about them, she said. The village. So he did. Talked about the families lost, the children orphaned, the justice he'd promised. And she listened, hands kneading the knots from his muscles, presence, steady and grounding. When he finally turned to face her, his eyes were wet. Thank you. For what? For being here, for listening without trying to fix or diminish or move on too quickly. He caught her hand, pressed it to his chest. For making the noise bearable. She felt his heartbeat under her palm, strong, steady, matching the accelerating rhythm of her own. Your heart is racing, she whispered. Is it? His other hand came up to cup her face. What do you think that means? I'm not the one who can read hearts. Then let me translate. He leaned closer, until his forehead rested against hers. It means I'm terrified. Because what I feel for you goes beyond anything I've known, and the thought of losing you stops my breath. Preventu. You won't lose me, she breathed. Promise? Instead of answering with words, she closed the remaining distance and kissed him. Unlike their first kiss, that brief, startled meeting of lips, this one burned. His hands tangled in her hair, hers clutched at his shoulders, and for a perfect moment, there was no kingdom, no threats, no scars from the past. Only this, 2 people finding home in each other. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Corin's eyes had darkened to storm cloud gray. Your heart? He murmured against her lips. It's singing. What does it say? It says you're mine, as surely as I'm yours, and that neither of us is running anymore. They fell into a new rhythm after that. Days were spent in purposeful work, her helping reform policies, him ruling with newfound perspective. But nights became theirs alone. They'd have dinner in his chambers, talk by the fire, and eventually gravitate toward each other like magnets finding true north. He taught her to dance, holding her close. As they moved to music only he could hear, the symphonies of the kingdom, he called it the rhythms of life that constantly surrounded them. In his arms, Thera felt something she hadn't experienced in 7 years. Safe. I need to tell you something, Corin said one night as they swayed together in the firelight. About the claiming ceremonies. Thera tensed. What about them? The next one is in 2 weeks. As king, I'm expected to attend. Expected to consider potential mates from the eligible females presented. Pain lanced through her chest. I see. No, you don't. He stopped dancing, tipped her chin up to meet his eyes. I have no intention of claiming anyone but you, Thera. But tradition demands I go through the motions. I wanted you to hear it from me first. To know that regardless of who parades before me, my wolf has already chosen. My heart has already chosen. But I can't attend the ceremony, she said, the old fear rising. If I'm presented, if other alphas sense my lineage, you won't be presented. You'll be with me, at my side, where you belong. That's not how it works. The king does whatever he wants, Corin interrupted gently. And I want you beside me. Not as a potential claim, but as the woman I intend to make my queen, if you'll have me. Her heart stopped, then restarted at double speed. He heard it, of course, and smiled that private smile meant only for her. Think about it, he said, pulling her close again. But while you do, know this. I love you, Thera. I love your brilliant mind, your survivor's strength, your frost and moonlight scent that haunts me even in sleep. I love the way your heart races when I'm near, and the way it calms when I hold you. I love every part of you that you've tried so hard to hide, and I want to spend my life making sure you never have to hide again. Thera buried her face in his chest, overwhelmed by emotion. For 7 years, she'd believed herself unworthy of love, too damaged, too hunted. But in Corin's arms, she felt whole, seen, chosen. I love you too, she whispered against his heart. I think I've loved you since you first listened to my silence and heard everything I couldn't say. His arms tightened around her, and for a long moment, they simply stood together, two hearts beating in synchrony, finding peace in a world that had tried its best to keep them apart. The claiming ceremony. Preparations consumed the palace. Seamstresses created elaborate gowns for the eligible females. Cooks prepared elaborate feasts. Decorators transformed the grand hall into something out of legend. Thera watched it all with growing unease. You're worried? Corin observed during one of their morning breakfasts. I don't trust ceremonies where women are paraded like livestock for powerful men to select. Neither do I, he admitted. The tradition is archaic, but changing centuries of protocol requires political capital I don't yet have. First, I need to secure succession. By choosing a mate at the ceremony? By revealing I've already chosen one. You. He reached across the table to take her hand. Once we're formally bonded, I'll have the authority to reform the entire system. But I need you to trust me through this process. She wanted to. Gods, she wanted to. But something felt wrong. A prickling at the base of her spine that she'd learned never to ignore. That afternoon, she was walking through the palace gardens when she overheard voices from the hedge maze. She recognized Lord Brennan's distinguished tone, but the other voice was unfamiliar. Female, cultured, cold. Must be handled before the ceremony, the woman said. If the king makes his preference clear, our entire plan collapses. Lady Morrigan, I assure you, his infatuation will pass. He's never been serious about any woman before. This one is different. I've seen the way he looks at her. And worse, I've made inquiries. The girl has Silvermoon blood. Thera's breath caught. She pressed herself against the hedge, listening with every fiber of her being. Impossible, Brennan said. The Silvermoon line ended 7 years ago. Draven Ironclaw's mate was a Silvermoon. Did you never wonder what happened to their daughter? The girl supposedly died in a fire, but I have sources who claim otherwise. Sources who say she survived and has been hiding in plain sight. Kenneth, you're suggesting the king's paramour is exactly what I'm suggesting. And if she bonds with him, if their bloodlines merge, it will create a power shift that threatens everything we've built. Silence. Then Brennan, what do you propose? An expansion. The girl needs to disappear, permanently, before the ceremony. It must look natural, an accident, perhaps. Pow. The king will grieve, but he'll recover. He's practical that way. I won't be party to murder. Then, be party to treason. Morrigan's voice turned sharp. Because if this girl becomes queen, she'll uncover all our carefully buried secrets. The embezzlements, the territory deals, the alliances we've negotiated without royal approval. She's too clever, Brennan. You said so yourself. She sees patterns. How long before she sees ours? Footsteps approached. Thera fled, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure the entire garden could hear it. She ran through corridors, upstairs, not stopping until she reached Corin's study and slammed the door behind her. He looked up from his papers, immediately alarmed. Thera? What's wrong? Your heart, it's racing at a dangerous pace. Brennan, she gasped out. And someone called Morrigan. They're planning to kill me before the ceremony. Corin was around the desk in an instant, hands on her shoulders. Slow down. Tell me exactly what you heard. To heard an instant. To heard an instant. She did, word for word, her memory sharp with fear. As she spoke, Corin's expression transformed from concern to cold fury. Lady Morrigan Ashenheart, he said when she finished. Head of the Northern Territories, one of the most powerful alphas in the kingdom. And Brennan, his jaw clenched. I trusted him. I trusted him. What are we going to do? We? He cupped her face. You're going to stay in these chambers with my personal guard posted outside. You're not leaving my sight until the ceremony. And then? Then I'm going to expose them publicly. But I need proof first. Accusations against nobles of their standing require evidence. Over the next week, Corin quietly investigated while maintaining his normal routine. Thera remained in the royal chambers, watched over by guards she wasn't entirely sure she could trust. The walls seemed to close in. Every footstep in the corridor made her jump. Every meal delivery felt like a potential poisoning. Your heart hasn't calmed in days, Corin said one evening, holding her as they lay together by the fire. The pattern is different now. Sustained fear, not the fluctuating rhythm of before. I feel like prey waiting for the hunter. I won't let anything happen to you. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. I've stationed my most loyal guards outside, the ones who served my father, who have no allegiance to Brennan or Morrigan. What if that's not enough? He pulled back to look at her, his storm-gray eyes intense. Then I'll tear apart anyone who tries to touch you. My wolf is very clear on this. Your pack, your mate, you're everything that matters, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have frightened her, should have triggered memories of Draven's brutal claiming of her mother. But this was different. Corin's protection didn't seek to cage her, but to shield her. There was a distinction that made all the difference. 2 days before the ceremony, Corin returned to their chambers with a leather folder. I have it. Proof of everything. Brennan has been siphoning kingdom funds for years, funneling them to Morrigan's territory in exchange for political support. They've been planning a coup waiting for the right moment to undermine my rule and install Morrigan's son as a puppet king. Why wait until now? Because I was unwed, without heir. If I died mysteriously, the throne would fall into question, and in the chaos, they could seize power. But if I bond with you, produce heirs, the line of succession becomes secure. Their window of opportunity closes. Thera studied the documents, her strategic mind piecing together the larger pattern. The claiming ceremony is perfect cover. All the nobility gathered, attention focused elsewhere. If something happened to you during the event, exactly. Which is why I'm moving up our timeline. He set the folder aside and took both her hands. Thera, I was going to do this properly at the ceremony, but I can't wait. I can't risk losing you to their schemes. He dropped to one knee, and her heart forgot how to beat. Mate with me, he said simply. Not in 2 days, but tonight. Let me mark you, claim you, bind you to me, so thoroughly that anyone who touches you will know they're committing treason against the crown. Let me protect you the only way that truly matters, by making you mine in the eyes of every law, wolf and human. Tears blurred her vision. I'm still so afraid. Of me? Of losing myself. Of becoming what my mother was, a vessel for someone else's ambitions. Then let me make you a promise. He brought her hands to his lips. You'll never lose yourself with me. You'll be queen, yes, but you'll also be my partner, my equal. Every decision we make together, every policy we debate, every battle we fight side by side. I don't want a silent mate who submits. I want you brilliant, fierce, stubborn, you exactly as you are. She sank to her knees before him, so they were eye to eye. You promise? You swear it? On my life. On my throne. On every star in the sky that I know you love to watch. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. Be mine, Thera. Let me be yours. And together, we'll build something better than either of us could alone. Her heart, that treacherous organ that had betrayed her feelings from the start, sang out a rhythm he'd recognize anywhere. Yes, yes, yes. I'll mate with you, she whispered. Tonight. Now. Before fear or politics or ancient grudges can tear us apart. The smile that broke across his face was pure joy. And when he kissed her, it tasted like promise and hope, and the beginning of something that would shake the kingdom to its foundations. The mating ceremony was private, witnessed only by the guards who'd sworn loyalty to Corin, and a priestess who'd served his family for 3 generations. No elaborate celebration, no political theater. Just truth spoken in the old tongue. Marks exchanged, and a bond that settled into place like pieces of a puzzle, finally united. When Corin bit into the junction of her neck and shoulder, claiming her before witnesses, Thera felt it, the snap of connection that legends spoke of. Their hearts synchronized, beating as one. And for the first time since her mother's death, she felt the stirring of her suppressed wolf, called forth by her mate's presence. I can feel you, she gasped, as power flooded through her. My wolf, she's waking up. Let her, Corin murmured against her skin. Let her rise. You're safe now. Protected. You never have to hide again. And the shift came naturally, as if she'd done it 1,000 times before. Silver fur rippled across her skin, bones reformed, and suddenly she stood on 4 legs, staring up at her mate with new eyes. Corin shifted too, his massive black wolf dwarfing her smaller frame. But instead of intimidating, his presence felt protective, grounding. He pressed his muzzle to hers, and she heard his voice in her mind. Asterisk. Welcome home, my heart. Asterisk. They ran together through the private palace grounds, 2 wolves moving as one, and for those perfect hours, Thera knew freedom she'd never experienced. Not the half-life of hiding, but true liberation, being fully herself beside someone who loved every piece of her. When they returned to human form in his chambers, tangled together in soft sheets as dawn broke, Corin traced the claiming mark on her shoulder with reverent fingers. How do you feel? Complete, she admitted. For the first time in 7 years, I feel whole. Good. He kissed the mark, making her shiver. Because in a few hours, we're going to walk into that claiming ceremony, and I'm going to introduce you as my queen. And then we're going to destroy Brennan and Morrigan's schemes so thoroughly they'll spend the rest of their lives regretting they ever threatened with mine. But when they arrived at the grand hall for the ceremony, Thera's instincts screamed, warning. Too many guards she didn't recognize. Too many faces in the crowd with carefully blank expressions. And Brennan, standing near the dais with Lady Morrigan at his side, both wearing smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Something's wrong, Thera whispered to Corin as they made their entrance. I know. Stay close to me. The ceremony proceeded according to tradition. Eligible females were presented, each one parading before the king for his consideration. Corin dismissed them all politely, until only Lady Morrigan's daughter remained a beautiful woman with calculating eyes. Your Majesty, Brennan said smoothly, Lady Alara Ashenheart is the finest match available. Her bloodline is impeccable, her political connections vast. The council unanimously recommends. The council? Corin interrupted, his alpha voice cutting through the hall. Does not choose my mate. I do, and I have already chosen. He turned to Thera, extending his hand. She took it, stepping forward into the light where everyone could see her. See the claiming mark on her neck. See the way their hands fit together. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers. Brennan's face went carefully blank, but Morrigan's twisted with fury. Lords and ladies, Corin announced, may I present Thera Silvermoon, my mate and your future queen. The whispers became roars. Silvermoon, the lost bloodline. Impossible. This is madness. Morrigan's voice cut through the chaos. The Silvermoon line is extinct. This woman is an imposter, a scentless fraud who's bewitched our king. I am no fraud, Thera said, finding her voice despite her thundering heart. I am the daughter of Lyanna Silvermoon, and yes, I hid my scent to escape those who would have killed me for my mother's courage in defending herself against a brutal mate. But I hide no longer. She let her scent bloom fully, frost and moonlight filling the hall. Those old enough to remember the Silvermoon line inhaled sharply, recognition dawning. It's true, an elderly alpha murmured. I knew her grandmother. That scent. It's unmistakable. Then she's a fugitive, Morrigan insisted, wanted for her mother's crime of alpha murder. A crime, Corin interrupted coldly. That was actually self-defense against an abusive mate. A fact I've thoroughly documented. Would you like me to present evidence of Dravon Ironclaw's brutality, or shall we discuss other crimes? He gestured, and guards brought forth the leather folder, such as embezzlement, treason, and conspiracy to commit regicide. Brennan blanched. Morrigan froze. Yes, Corin continued. I know everything. Every coin you've stolen, every secret deal you've made, every plan you've crafted to undermine this throne. And now, before all these witnesses, I'm giving you a choice. Confess publicly and accept exile, or face trial and execution. The hall erupted. Guards moved to surround Brennan and Morrigan. The two conspirators looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Then Morrigan smiled, cold and cruel. You think you've won? You think your little mate is safe because you've marked her? She raised her hand, and Thera saw it a ring, glowing with sickly green light. I've been preparing for this contingency, Your Majesty. If I can't have the throne, neither will you. She threw the ring at Thera. It exploded midair, releasing a cloud of poisonous gas that engulfed her before anyone could react. Thera's vision blurred. Her lungs burned. She heard Corin roaring, felt his arms around her as she collapsed, but it all seemed distant, muffled. No! Corin's voice, raw with anguish. Thera, stay with me. But darkness was pulling her down, heavy and inexorable. Her last thought before unconsciousness claimed her was a bitter one. After everything, after finally finding home, she was going to die anyway, just like her mother. Thera woke to agony. Every breath felt like inhaling fire, every heartbeat a hammer blow against her ribs. Through the haze, she heard voices urgent, frightened. Poison is bonded to her bloodstream. We can't extract it without killing her, Cor. Then find another way. Corin's voice, desperate in a way she'd never heard. I don't care what it costs. Your Majesty, there is one possibility. The old magic, from before the kingdoms were divided. A life bond ritual that would share the poison between you. Dilute its effects enough that both of you might survive. Do it, but the risk if it fails, you'll both die. I said do it. Thera tried to speak, to tell him not to risk himself, but no sound emerged. She felt hands on her, felt the surge of magic, and then connection. Deeper than the mating bond, more primal than shared heartbeats. She felt Corin's life force flowing into her, felt the poison splitting between them, spreading through his veins as it diluted in hers. His pain became hers. Her agony became his. Prasa. They hung suspended together in a space between life and death. Two souls clinging to each other with desperate strength. Asterisk, don't you dare die on me. Asterisk, his voice echoed in her mind. Asterisk, we just found each other. I'm not letting go. Asterisk, asterisk, you should have let me go. Asterisk, she thought back. Asterisk, saved yourself. The kingdom needs you. Asterisk, asterisk, I need you more. Asterisk, time lost meaning. Pain was everything and nothing. But gradually, slowly, the poison's grip weakened. Their shared life force proved too strong, too resilient. Death reached for them, but found two instead of one, and couldn't claim both. Power. When Thera finally opened her eyes, she found herself in the royal bedchamber. Corin lay beside her, unconscious but breathing. Marks covered his skin. Where the poison had manifested, dark veins like cracks in porcelain. Your Majesty. Healer approached, relief evident. Thank the gods. You've been unconscious for 3 days. We weren't sure. Corin? Her voice came out as a rasp. Stable. Weak, but stable. The life bond worked, though it nearly killed you both. The healer checked her pulse. You'll both need extensive recovery time. Weeks, perhaps months. Quote, Morrigan? Brennan? Executed for treason. The evidence King Corin presented was irrefutable. The healer's expression darkened, though they went unrepentant. Morrigan's last words were a curse against your bloodline. Of course they were. Thera closed her eyes, exhausted, but alive. They were both alive. Corin woke 2 days later. The first thing he did was reach for her, his hand finding hers across the space between their beds. Your heart, he murmured. I can still hear it. That means you're real. You're here. I'm here. She squeezed his hand. You saved me. We saved each other. That's what mates do. Recovery was slow and frustrating. The poison had weakened them both, left them vulnerable in ways they'd never been. Thera, who'd always relied on quiet strength, found herself unable to stand for more than a few minutes. Corin, whose alpha power had been absolute, struggled with simple tasks. We make quite a pair, he said one afternoon as they sat together by the window, both too weak to do more than watch the world outside. The king and queen who can barely walk. Temporary setback, Thera insisted, though doubt crept into her voice. We'll recover. But weeks passed, and progress was minimal. Worse, in their weakened state, the kingdom began to fracture. Nobles who'd supported Brennan and Morrigan saw opportunity in the power vacuum. Border disputes erupted. Trade agreements fell apart. The council met daily to address crises, but without Corrin's alpha authority to maintain order, chaos crept in at the edges. You need to address the court, Lord Halifax, the new chief advisor urged. Show them you're still strong, still capable. I can barely stand, Corrin said flatly. What would you have me do? Collapse on the throne for their entertainment? Better that than let them think you're dying. The rumors are spreading, Your Majesty. Some are calling for a regency. Others whisper about succession. After Halifax left, Corrin slammed his fist on the arm of his chair, a gesture that should have been forceful but came out weak. I'm failing them. Failing you, failing everything. You're recovering from poison that should have killed you, Thera said gently. That's not failure. It feels like it. He looked at her, frustration and fear mingling in his eyes. I can still hear your heart, Thera. It's not as strong as it used to be. The rhythm is slower, less vibrant. What if the poison did permanent damage? What if we never fully heal? Go. She had the same fears, but voicing them wouldn't help. Instead, she moved painfully, slowly to kneel before him, took his hands in hers. Then we adapt. We find new ways to rule, new sources of strength, but we don't give up. My mother didn't raise a quitter, and I don't think your father did either. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're right, though your heart just sped up when you spoke of your mother. Even weakened, I can still read you. Good. Then read this. She brought his hand to her chest, where her heart beat with determination beneath his palm. I'm not giving up on us. On any of this, we survived assassination attempts, conspiracies, and poison. We can survive recovery too. Xiomara's. But that night, alone in the darkness, Thera allowed herself to cry, Prosta. For the strength she'd lost, for the freedom she'd briefly tasted, for the future that felt suddenly uncertain. Her wolf, only recently awakened, had retreated deep inside again, too weak to manifest. She was back where she'd started, invisible, powerless, trapped. Except this time, she wasn't alone. Corrin found her in the darkness, followed the sound of her crying heart. He didn't speak, just held her while she wept, his own tears falling silent into her hair. Two broken people, clinging to each other in the dark, hoping dawn would bring something better than this. The summons came at dawn not for Corrin, but for Thera. The Grand Council demanded her presence immediately, Corrin said, struggling to rise from bed. I should be there. You can barely walk 10 paces without exhaustion, Thera said gently, helping him sit back down. I'll be fine. It's probably administrative paperwork for my official queen status. But the tightness in her chest suggested otherwise. Her recovering wolf senses whispered danger. The council chamber was full, every lord and lady who held territory, every alpha of note. At the center stood Lord Pettier Ravencrest, a northern alpha she vaguely recognized from previous court gatherings. His expression was granite as she entered. Lady Thera Silvermoon, he announced formally. You stand before this council accused of high treason. The words hit like a physical blow. What? That's absurd. Is it? Ravencrest gestured, and guards brought forth a chest. From it, they removed documents, letters, correspondence, all bearing her supposed signature. We have evidence that you've been communicating with rogue elements in the Northern Territories. Power. Planning to overthrow King Corrin and seize the throne for yourself. L. Thera's mind raced. Those are forgeries. I never... We also have testimony. Ravencrest nodded to a figure in the shadows. Dravos Ironclaw stepped forward, his smile vicious. Lord Dravos has sworn under truth spell that you admitted your plans to him, that you've been using your mate bond with the king to weaken him deliberately, facilitating your takeover. He's lying. Thera's voice rose. Dravos has wanted me dead since I was 16. Convenient excuse. Another council member interjected. A woman with no scent, no verifiable history, who appears from nowhere and within months becomes queen? The circumstances have always been suspicious. King Corin verified my identity. A king who, notably, has been grievously weakened since your bonding, Ravencrest said coldly. Some might say suspiciously so. The poison that nearly killed you both came from Morrigan's ring. Yes, but who's to say you weren't in league with her? That the entire assassination attempt wasn't theater designed to gain the king's sympathy and trust? The web of false evidence was masterful, Thera realized with growing horror. Every truth twisted, every coincidence weaponized. Where is Corin? He would never allow. The king is indisposed. Ravencrest's expression suggested this had been arranged. The council has voted to act in his stead, given his weakened condition. 13-5, we find you guilty of treason against the crown. C.O. Maras. You can't, this is madness, power. The sentence, Ravencrest continued as if she hadn't spoken, is execution at sunset. Quote, given your mate bond with the king, we cannot afford a lengthy trial that might further weaken His Majesty's health. Swift justice is mercy. They dragged her to the dungeons despite her struggles. The cell was cold, dark, familiar in the worst way she'd hidden in places like this during her fugitive years. But this time, there was no suppressant oil to make her invisible, no identity to slip into. She was Thera Silvermoon, queen of nothing, condemned to die. Hours crawled past. She tried reaching Corin through their bond, but something was blocking her, a dulling of the connection that suggested magical interference. They'd planned this meticulously, she realized. Isolated them when they were weakest. Struck when Corin couldn't defend her. Footsteps echoed in the dungeon. She looked up to find Dravos approaching her cell, triumphant. Finally, he said, gripping the bars. After 7 years, I'll watch you die, just like I watched your mother. Quote, you weren't there when she died. No, but I heard about it. How my pack tore her apart, piece by piece. How she screamed your name at the end. His smile was cruel. You'll scream too. I've arranged for your execution to be memorable. Traditional. They'll tear you apart as a wolf, let your animal die slowly, and the king will hear every moment of it. Her wolf stirred weakly, enraged but too depleted to manifest. Corin will destroy you for this. Corin is dying. Dravos leaned closer. The life bond ritual only delayed the inevitable. The healers whisper it when they think no one's listening. The poison is still in his system, still spreading. He has weeks, maybe days, and when he's gone, the council will need a new king, someone strong. Someone like me. You're delusional. Am I? I have Ravencrest's support, and half the Northern Alphas. Your death removes the last obstacle. The council can claim you poisoned the king, that executing you was just, and in his grief, Corin will fade. Problem solved. He walked away, his laughter echoing in the stone corridors. Thera sank to the floor, despair crushing her chest. Her heart beat sluggishly. Weakly, could Corin even hear it anymore? Did he know where she was? Or had they told him she'd fled? Abandoned him? Asterisk. I'm here. Asterisk, she thought desperately into the bond. Asterisk. I'm still here. Don't believe them. Don't give up. Asterisk. But only silence answered. The execution platform was erected in the main courtyard, where everyone could witness. As guards dragged Thera toward it, she saw the crowd nobles in fine clothes, commoners from the city, all gathered to watch a queen die. No sign of Corin. Had they truly managed to keep him away? Or was he— No. She'd know if he died. The bond would break. She'd feel it. The fact that she still sensed that thread of connection, however weak, meant he lived. Any last words? Ravencrest asked from his position of authority. He'd placed himself center stage, as if already king. Thera lifted her chin. If these were her final moments, she wouldn't spend them cowering. I am innocent. And the truth will surface, whether I'm alive to see it or not. Those who've orchestrated this farce will answer for it. And brave words from a condemned traitor? Dravos called from the crowd. Let's see how brave you are when— A roar split the air. Not human, not entirely wolf, something primal and enraged, that made every alpha in the courtyard freeze with instinctual fear. Corin burst onto the platform, and Thera's heart stuttered at the sight of him. He looked half dead, skin pale, movements jerky, dark veins still visible beneath his skin. But his eyes burned with alpha fury, and his presence radiated power that hadn't been there days ago. Beside him walked an elderly woman in ritual robes, her hands glowing with silver light. Stop this immediately, Corin commanded, his voice cracking like thunder despite his physical weakness. This execution is illegal. This trial is a sham. Your Majesty, Ravencrest said, recovering quickly. You're unwell. You shouldn't be here. I'm well enough to recognize treason when I see it. Corin moved to Thera, cutting her bonds with his own hands, and well enough to hear the lies in your heartbeat, Ravencrest. Every word you've spoken today has been false. You're delusional from poison. Am I? Corin turned to the elderly woman. High Priestess Moira, if you would. The priestess stepped forward, her voice carrying across the courtyard with unnatural resonance. I am Moira Starweaver, keeper of the old magics. 3 days ago, King Corin came to me requesting a truth-revealing ritual, the kind that cannot be fooled or falsified. I have spent those days in deep communion with the sacred texts, and I can now reveal what was hidden. She raised her hands, and silver light burst forth, coalescing into images above the courtyard. The crowd gasped as they watched scenes play out like theater. Ravencrest and Dravos meeting in secret, planning Thera's downfall, the forged documents being created, the bribery of council members. And further back, Ravencrest's involvement with Morrigan and Brennan's conspiracy, the lesser conspirator who'd escaped initial exposure. No! Ravencrest lunged for the priestess, but Corin intercepted him, slamming the larger man to the platform with strength that belied his weakened state. You thought I was too weak to act, Corin growled. You thought wrong. Yes, the poison damaged me. But it also taught me that my greatest strength isn't physical power, it's knowing who to trust. He looked at Thera. And I trust her more than anyone in this kingdom. The images continued, revealing layer after layer of conspiracy. Ravencrest's plan to seize the throne, Dravos's blood vendetta, the council members who'd been bribed or blackmailed into voting for Thera's execution. By the time Moira lowered her hands, the crowd was in uproar. Nobles shouted accusations at each other. Guards moved to arrest Ravencrest and his co-conspirators. Dravos tried to flee, but was caught before he reached the courtyard gates. Corin turned to Thera. And despite everything, the crowd, the chaos, the attempted execution, he smiled. Hello, my heart. I heard you calling through the bond. Sorry it took me so long to answer. You're supposed to be resting, she said, tears streaming down her face. Rest, later. Save my mate now. He cupped her face gently. Your heart is racing. Fear, relief, or something else? All of it. She leaned into his touch. How did you know? How did you arrange all this? You once told me you survived by seeing patterns others missed. I learned from you. He pressed his forehead to hers. When they took you, I knew it was coordinated, too precise, too well timed. So instead of fighting directly, I went to the one person in the kingdom whose magic is older than politics, High Priestess Moira. If they wanted to play games with evidence, I'd bring magic that couldn't be refuted. And nearly killed yourself doing it, Moira interjected, moving to check his pulse. Your Majesty, you're burning through life force you don't have. You need to rest immediately. After, Corin straightened, addressing the crowd with alpha authority. Let it be known that Queen Thera Silvermoon is innocent of all charges. Those who conspired against her will face full justice, and anyone who questions her right to rule beside me will answer to me personally. The crowd erupted in cheers, surprisingly genuine support. Thera realized that many had harbored doubts about the charges, had seen through the political maneuvering. As guards led away the conspirators, Corin swayed. Thera caught him, supporting his weight as best she could with her own depleted strength. We're quite a pair, she murmured, echoing his words from weeks ago. Neither of us can walk without the other. Good thing we have each other then. He kissed her forehead. Though Moira's right, I may have overdone it with the dramatic entrance. You think? They helped each other off the platform. Two rulers leaning on each other for support, neither whole alone but somehow complete together. The crowd parted, giving them space, and as they moved through it, Thera heard whispers, King who hears hearts, Queen, who survived. They truly love each other. Yes, Thera thought as her heart beat in synchrony with Corin's. They truly did. 3 months later, the true coronation took place, not the hasty mating ceremony in Crisis, but a proper celebration of their union. The grand hall glittered with thousands of candles. Nobles from every territory attended, all conspiracy and doubt purged from the court. Thera stood before the assembled court in a gown of silver and midnight blue, her frost and moonlight scent unmuted and unapologetic. The claiming mark on her neck was visible, displayed proudly. She was no longer hiding. Corin stood beside her, fully recovered, his strength returned over months of careful healing. Together, they'd grown stronger not just physically, but as rulers. The crisis had forged them into something unprecedented, partners who actually ruled together. High Priestess Moira performed the ceremony, blessing their union with old magic that made the very air shimmer. Two hearts that learned to beat as one. Two souls that found each other across silence and sound. May your bond strengthen the kingdom as it has strengthened you. As Moira placed the crown on Thera's head, a delicate circlet of silver wolves and moonstones, Corin took her hand. Through their bond, she felt his pride, his love, his absolute certainty that this was exactly where they both belonged. My queen, he murmured, just for her. My king, she replied, squeezing his hand. The celebration that followed was unlike anything the kingdom had seen in generations. Not stuffy political theater, but genuine joy. Thera had insisted on inviting commoners from Ashvale, including Cassian and others who'd helped her survive her years in hiding. They mingled awkwardly with nobility at first, until Corin himself broke protocol by sitting among them, asking questions about their lives, actually listening to their concerns. You've changed him, Lord Halifax commented to Thera during the feast. In all my years serving the crown, I've never seen a king so present with his people. He changed himself, Thera replied, watching Corin laugh at something Cassian said. I just reminded him why it mattered. Later that night, after the last guests had departed and the palace finally quieted, Corin led Thera to the tower room where they'd first shared vulnerabilities. The city spread below them, peaceful under starlight. Do you remember what I told you the first time I brought you here? He asked, pulling her against his chest. That you could hear everything. That the world was never quiet. It's still not. He rested his chin on her head. But now, when the noise becomes too much, I focus on one sound above all others. What sound? Your heartbeat. His arms tightened around her. That steady rhythm that tells me you're here, you're safe, you're mine. It's become my anchor, Thera, the one constant in all the chaos. She turned in his arms to face him. My heart has always been yours. Even when I was hiding, even when I had no scent, no identity my heart knew. It called to you long before I was brave enough to admit it. That first day in the market, he mused, when I heard your racing heart and couldn't understand why. I should have known then. Should have recognized the pattern. What pattern? The sound of coming home. He kissed her softly. That's what your heartbeat is to me. Home. Over the following months, they revolutionized the kingdom together. The claiming ceremonies were abolished, replaced with voluntary bonding celebrations, where both parties chose freely. Trade routes were reformed based on Thera's insights from the contraband markets, eliminating the economic desperation that had fueled illegal commerce. And a new law was established. Anyone could hide their scent if they chose, for any reason. Forced identification was outlawed. You're dismantling centuries of tradition, Halifax warned during one council meeting. No, Thera corrected. We're building something better, traditions. Traditions that protected the powerful, while endangering the vulnerable, needed to be dismantled. Not everyone was pleased. Some northern alphas grumbled about the loss of the old ways. But when Corin stood before them, Thera at his side, and asked them to explain why forced claiming was just, none could provide an answer that satisfied even themselves. Slowly, grudgingly, the kingdom adapted. One evening, as they reviewed petitions in the study they now shared, Corin paused. Your heartbeat just changed. That's the pattern you get when... He looked up, eyes widening. Are you? Thera's hand moved instinctively to her still flat stomach. The healers confirmed it this morning. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you. The documents scattered as he pulled her into his arms, spinning her once before remembering to be gentle. A child. We're going to have a child. Are you happy? She asked, though his racing heart already told her the answer. I'm terrified, he admitted, and more joyful than I knew was possible. How is it that your heartbeat remains calm when mine is thunder? Because I have you, and as long as I have you, I can face anything. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Thera continued her work almost until the birth, ignoring protests that queens should rest. I rested enough when I was poisoned, she said firmly. I'm not wasting another moment being helpless. Their daughter was born on the winter solstice, entering the world with a lusty cry that made Corin laugh through tears. She had Thera's silver blonde hair and Corin's storm-gray eyes, and when she was placed in her mother's arms, Thera felt her tiny heart beating strong and true. What shall we name her? Corin asked, one finger gently stroking his daughter's cheek. Lyanna, Thera said immediately. After my mother. So she'll know that courage and sacrifice can lead to joy, eventually. Lyanna Silvermoon Nightshade. Corin tested the name. Perfect. And she'll grow up free, Thera. Free to choose her own path, her own mate, her own life. That's the world we're building for her. 5 years later, that world had taken remarkable shape. The kingdom thrived under their joint rule. Thera's council reforms had created space for common voices in government. Corin's enforcement of the new laws had, after some initial resistance, gained broad support, and little Lyanna, precocious, wild, utterly fearless, was growing up in a palace that felt more like a home than a fortress. One afternoon, Thera found Corin in the gardens, teaching Lyanna to identify herbs. This one is Nightshade, he was saying. And it's dangerous, so we never touch it without gloves. Why is it here then? Liana asked with a 5-year-old's logic. Because sometimes dangerous things can serve good purposes, if used with wisdom and care. We keep it to remember that. Liana spotted Thera watching and squealed, launching herself at her mother. Thera caught her, swinging her up despite the child's growing weight. Mama, Papa is teaching me about dangerous plants. Is he? Thera met Corin's eyes over their daughter's head, seeing the contentment there that mirrored her own. I figured she should learn early, Corin said, rising and brushing dirt from his knees. Our daughter has your curiosity and my stubbornness. A dangerous combination. The best kind, Thera countered. That evening, after Liana was asleep, and they sat together in their chambers, Corin listened as always to the sounds of the kingdom. But his focus remained on the heartbeat beside him. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Giving up invisibility? The safety of hiding? Never. Thera laced her fingers through his. I hid for 7 years, and I survived. But I didn't truly live until you found me. Until you heard what I couldn't say and loved me anyway. Cloud. Your heart is doing that thing again, he murmured. The pattern that means you're happy. What does your heart say? He pulled her close, pressing her hand to his chest where his heart beat strong and steady. It says I'm home. It says I found my mate against all odds. It says that sometimes, the very thing you think makes you different, your scentlessness, my constant hearing is exactly what brings you to where you belong. Thera kissed him, slow and deep, pouring 7 years of gratitude into it. Gratitude for the man who'd tracked her not by scent, but by the rhythm of her frightened heart. Who'd heard her silence and understood. Who'd loved her not despite her secrets, but through them. I love you, she whispered against his lips. Every stubborn, persistent, heart-listening part of you. And I love you, he replied. My queen, my mate, my home. Outside, the city settled into peaceful sleep. Inside, 2 hearts beat in perfect synchrony, a rhythm of love that had overcome invisibility, conspiracy, poison, and fear. A rhythm that would echo through generations. A story told to wide-eyed children about the king who could hear hearts and the queen who'd hidden hers. Until his love taught her she didn't have to hide anymore. And in her room down the hall, little Liana dreamed of adventures, growing up in a kingdom where she would never have to choose between freedom and love, between hiding and being seen. A kingdom built by 2 people who proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being vulnerable enough to be heard. 20 years later, the delegation from the Eastern Kingdoms had been waiting in the throne room for an hour, growing increasingly restless. They'd come to negotiate a trade treaty, expecting to deal with King Corin alone, as was traditional with most monarchies. Instead, they found themselves facing a throne room with 2 equal thrones, side by side. And when the rulers finally entered, it was together King Corin, silver threading through his dark hair, but still powerful, and Queen Thera, more radiant at 43 than she'd been at 23. Forgive the delay, Corin said, taking his seat. We were reviewing the proposals you submitted. Quite thorough, though with some concerning gaps. Thera added, spreading documents before her. Your tariff structures would disadvantage our smaller merchants. We'll need revisions to sections 3, 7, and 14. The lead negotiator blinked. Your Majesty the Queen, you've reviewed our proposals? Of course, Thera said, puzzled. Did you expect otherwise? We were told. That is, we understood that King Corin handled all political negotiations. You were misinformed. Corin's tone was pleasant but firm. My wife and I rule jointly. She handles domestic commerce and legal reform. I handle military and foreign relations. But we review all major decisions together. Has been that way for 20 years. The negotiators exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for a queen with actual authority, power. One of them, bolder than the rest, leaned forward. "Forgive my curiosity, your majesties, but such equal partnership is unusual. How do you manage when you disagree?" Corin and Thera looked at each other, a private smile passing between them. "We listen," Corin said simply. "To each other?" the negotiator pressed. "To everything?" Thera replied. "Including what isn't said. We learned early that the most important truths often hide in silence, in the spaces between words. And in heartbeats," Corin added softly, his eyes never leaving his wife's face. "Sometimes the heart speaks louder than any voice." Corin added Philaf to be. The negotiations proceeded smoothly after that, with both rulers contributing equally. When the Eastern delegation finally departed, significantly more educated about the kingdom of Nightshade, they carried stories that would spread across their homeland. Stories of a king who could hear the truth in every heartbeat, of a queen who'd hidden for 7 years and now blazed bright enough to illuminate a kingdom, and of a love that had transformed not just 2 people, but an entire way of ruling. "Another successful negotiation," Corin commented as servants cleared the throne room. "Pie. We make a good team. We make the best team." He offered his hand, and she took it, their fingers interlacing with practiced ease. "Though your heartbeat sped up during Section 7 discussions, what worried you?" "Nothing gets past you, does it?" "Not in 20 years. Not ever." He pulled her closer. "So what was it, kind?" "Just thinking about how different my life might have been if you hadn't stopped that day in the market. If you hadn't learned to track by heartbeat instead of scent. Part. I would have found you eventually. Your heart called to mine. I just had to learn the right language to hear it." They walked together through the palace, their kingdom, their life built from ashes and secrets, and the courage to be seen. Behind them, servants whispered the story that never grew old, how their king and queen found each other across the divide of silence and sound. And somewhere in the city below, a young woman applied suppressant oil to her skin, hiding her scent from those who would force her into choices not her own. But this time, she did it knowing that the law protected her right to hide, that the kingdom understood why some needed invisibility to survive. Because their queen had walked that path before her, and their king had loved her anyway, listening not to what the world said she should be, but to what her heart told him she was. The truest kind of love, the only kind worth building a kingdom on.